have a pretty fancy setup here. I don't think people know that we record to 1-inch reels in separate analog studios.
Yeah, the cost of DHL alone is something we really need to offset with some sponsorship. So if you're looking to advertise, our demo is our wives and Nick.
Yeah. If last week's episode sounded kind of bad, it's because our producer, Steve Albini, died. And I just didn't know where to put my microphone. Jerod, do you have like a favorite Steve Albini like recording? He's different from some of your favorite dudes. But do you appreciate his work?
I appreciate not only his work, but his contribution to the engineering community. That was a guy who was making educational content literally up until he died.
In terms of like ethos, authenticity, the right way to do things, that kind of stuff.
He also was teaching the next generation about how to do it. So he would put these YouTube videos out about mic placement and about where you should invest in quality and where quality cables matter, where quality mics matter. Like, here's an expensive thing. Is it better? No. Here's an expensive thing. Is it better? Yes. In fact, there was a guy recently who had a video about finding like a very specific guitar tone from In Utero, I think. And not only did Steve Albini end up watching that video and referencing it somewhere else, but he got on an interview with that guy talking about it. He's just...
That to me sounds like the right kind of nerd.
Yes.
He's really passionate. He's willing to give back. He stays in the community.
I'm sure he's a guy who kicks himself in his darkest moments for being the good guy, because he's a guy who could have taken points in a lot of places where he got paid, work for hire.
Right. That's the ethos part. I think I did the math on what I read, where In Utero could have been like sort of like a $4 million job for him, and that's not what he got paid.
No.
He just keeps moving to the next thing. Credibility, man.
Yeah, so I'll definitely... I don't know what the engineering equivalent to pour one out is. Is it like blow up a tube, or...
I think the best way to pay tribute to a guy like that is just to record a Home Alone song live. Not to a click, just instruments mic'd well, and see what we get.
I love that idea. I also love the idea of crowdsourcing which song that is. So if you're listening now and you're like, who's Steve Albini? Check out his Wikipedia page. I'm sure it has a decent section of his discography. But also shoot us an email and let us know what Home Alone song we should record in that raw style. And if you're like, I don't think I know what song you should record, well, just think of something that happens in Home Alone, and we either have a song about it or will have a song about it because you suggested it.
That's pretty much how we operate. It's a simple concept. I'm excited about that. Do you hear it in your head as more of like a Surfer Rosa style Home Alone song?
Pixies.
Or an In Utero?
Yeah, Pixies over Nirvana for sure.
Okay. Where Is My Family?
The Nirvana, Pixies, a lot of the bands that he recorded were not necessarily sex symbols, but they were still incredibly popular and did break into mainstream. So while they were household names, they were never in things like Tiger Beat or 17 magazine. And speaking of 17, this week
You rascal.
What do we have this week?
It was a long walk to minute 17 of Home Alone, but here we are. We made it. Do you need a beverage? Do you need to go take a nap now after that trip you just made?
If I change into some fresh socks and shoes, I'll be good for another 30 miles.
Minute 17. We are sort of bookended by two bit parts, two folks. Ideally, I like to think that they're getting their SAG cards with this movie. I think they have I don't know the rules, but I think they have just enough lines to get into the union here. The front at 1600, we've got the utility man. I'm not sure what he's credited as in the credits, but that's what I'm going to call him, right? We saw him earlier.
Yeah, we saw him up in the bucket truck before with some very specifically high voltage.
Right.
Which he repaired, by the way.
Yeah, the power's back on. But it's going to take Ma Bell a couple of days to get the phones back up.
I do like the timeline of this film that talks a bit about how all the phone companies had been broken up before they consolidated back again over the next 15 years.
Yeah, this is a very specific moment in telecommunication monopolies.
They're like, oh, we'll break everything up, and then they'll just acquire each other again really quickly.
We kind of saw that with the cell phones back in the day. We had Singular, and we had all these other people you could get a phone service from, and now we're back down to the three.
Well, it's the same monopolies as before. Like the same things were broken up into things like Bell South, and then they got absorbed back into one company.
Yeah, MCI was a thing for like a minute.
Ah, yeah.
And this is Ma Bell era.
Yeah, because the Bell breakup of, like I say, we sort of showed our hand in terms of the regional bit we had with Bell South, but all of those have all been absorbed back into, I believe, AT&T at this point, as we're recording this in the year of our Lord 2024.
People might be listening to this decades later and scratching their heads why we're not talking about Sprint, the only phone company.
I think it's cyclical. I think if they listen to it 20 years from now, Sprint will be the only one. If they listen to it again another 20 years after that, it'll be broken up. And then, whether they're a monopoly or a little guy, it's still going to take them a couple of days, especially around the holidays. Great point. Great exposition. This guy's got some info to dump, which only helps us later when we understand why they can't just call Kevin and say, oops, we left you. Sit tight. So it's an important line. This guy's crucial. Yep. He is critical. And I think delivers it well. He seems natural.
Yeah, he does a fine job. Catherine O'Hara blows him off better than anyone blows off someone else in a PG-rated movie. She's in a hurry, and she just doesn't listen to this guy at all.
I never want anyone to say thanks to me the way that she says it to him.
Exactly. She could barely muster up a polite thanks to this guy.
If we weren't trying to be family friendly, there would be a word to describe that attitude.
Not festive.
Right.
It seems like they cut away faster than they needed to, because he kind of gives it that like, well, okay, try to tell her. I guess you don't care. Like he kind of gives like a shrug kind of thing.
But you don't get the full completion of the shrug?
Yeah, it cuts to the inside of the van before like his full reaction's over. And I just know that as grateful as this guy was for the work, I bet he wanted that shot to linger just a little while, because he's doing a little bit more work there than the shot lets him shine.
Or maybe that part was less natural.
That's true too. They had to cut away because
he's just hamming it up. He's just like
he looks at the camera.
He does a fourth wall break.
Yeah, he does a Jim Halpert.
He shrugs with his shoulders so high that it looks like he's lifting dumbbells.
He has his own trombone.
He does like the sideways point at the van with his thumb.
Chris has to cut. Chris Columbus. We're friends.
First name basis, yeah.
Yeah, he calls him over. It's like, hey, really, really great delivery there. I liked it. Do you think maybe the end is a little much? Can we scale it back? Just the end, a skosh. Anything you need, boss. I'm here for you. And he just can't deliver. He keeps raising those eyebrows, looking at the camera. He makes like the emoji shrug, like he does like the shoulders pinched in, hands up kind of thing. And poor Chris is like, this is all I'm getting out of this guy.
Or maybe he just can't tone it down. Maybe he tries to, and then after delivering that line, he just goes, and then just kind of stands there because he can't not do anything.
Yeah. So we say goodbye to this man, never to see him again.
And you were talking about bookends, right?
Well, yeah, we can go chronological if we need to.
What you're saying is, can we please go chronologically?
If you'll allow.
I'd love it.
It's a good way to go, I think, because then we'll know when we're done.
God, thank God we're not doing the Memento Minute.
Okay, hear me out. We're on. Welcome to minute 99.
Last week on minute 34.
Thematically, they're structured in an articulate way. But we go into the van, right? Like we...
Yeah, she keeps
Kate's
her
in the
stress
van.
level at the same level, turns right back to another person who she's about to unload on.
You sense some hostility with Heather here? I think of it as just sort of like frantic, trying to like calm down and make sure like she's got everybody.
Yeah, I don't think she's malicious, but I think she just doesn't have time. None of them have time. That's the whole reason why they make this not careless error, but an error that if they had plenty of time might not have happened. So she has very little patience with the utility man, and she's asking in a very hurried tone about the head count.
Can you recognize what video game Jeff is playing?
It's not a Game Boy.
No, it's not. But it's not like one of those handheld Tiger games either.
Right, because it's colorless. Like, it's gray. It's like a warm gray. But you see those old handheld games, and they're all brightly colored, right? You play any of the sports games, a lot of them were orange. You play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they were green.
They were chunkier than what he's holding.
Right. It's very thin. It's thinner than a Game Boy.
Is it possible that what he's holding is not even a video game system?
I think based on the overacting he's doing with his face, it's not displaying anything for him.
He seems a little angry about what he's playing.
Yeah.
He's into it to like a severe degree.
His brow is permanently furrowed.
Yeah, he's concentrating on what might just be a plastic rectangle that props handed him and said, pretend.
I would like to know what it is and what was going through his head, because part of me is projecting what I think I would do, which is, okay, if this is not showing something to me, how do I both look interested in this and how do I try to ignore the lines that are happening across me?
See, these are the moments where I wish we didn't have a Steve Albini-esque integrity and we let all of these people who worked on Home Alone actually on the podcast. I know you and I turn them away every week and say, no. It's just a two-man show. We just want to hang out. We don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty with you guys. I do kind of want to know.
But then think of what we would be compromising.
Everything.
So as much as they will try, and go ahead, if you know any of these folks, maybe someone who worked in props or Jeff, like, go ahead and ask. We will turn them down. But
yes,
go ahead and have them write in again.
We'll tell them no. But maybe in the no email, we'll be like, could you tell us if Jeff is playing a real video game or if it's just a fake piece of plastic and you ADR'd some video game noises into it?
So what is the head count?
Oh, geez. You've got a head for these things better than I do. We've got
It's 11,
we've got 11 kids,
including Heather.
right? 4 adults, 2 drivers, and a partridge in a pear tree. What did I miss?
I think that's right because well, the 11 breakdown is 5 boys, 6 girls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you know what there's not a count for because it's infinite? The number of loose Christmas presents. Because in this scene, we also see that like in the front seat, and it's just kind of like up on the driver. So if Kate's in that van and Leslie's in another one, that means there are 2 vans that have a bunch of loose Christmas presents.
They got into those vans, and the production people were like, "No, no, 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 no! Everything's got to be Christmassy. We need more. we need some presents on the dash here. Throw a present over here, back here. Everybody's holding a gift bag."
That's so good. The idea that they've got these like blue and white vans, and they're like, our whole red-green thing is off.
Can we paint them? Oh, you can't paint them. We're using them tomorrow. We're taking real people to the airport.
From here, the music starts before.
Yeah, we get the little guitar intro before it cuts to that wide shot of the vans taking off. It comes in just before. It just kind of helps link everything together better.
And then we get a scene that I feel like is not a famous, or it's certainly not quotable because there's no real dialogue in it, but it's just, I feel like something that everyone could think of when they think of Home Alone.
The running through the airport?
Right.
Yeah. And well, it's because it's a mild motif in that they do it twice. This is also our first popular music cue, right?
Yes, an incredibly well selected one. So props to music supervisor there.
Yeah, Run Rudolph, little on the nose.
But you need that.
It's a great use of the song. I think that this movie does a really good job of sort of using the snippet of the song that works, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Throughout, and this is the first example of it, but it obviously doesn't use the entire song, but it uses the exact piece of it that it needs. Like it comes in perfect, it ends perfect, like it's cut to the music well. It's really masterful stuff.
I wonder if that was their temp and they actually got license for it.
Again, I just told the music supervisor for the movie, like, no, we don't want you. This is kind of our thing. That would take a lot of time to set you up in an analog studio, send you the brand of tape that we want, send you the right microphone, snap around it all the way until we're happy, measure it all out, and then talk to you about whether or not Run Rudolph was always in the plans or just a sort of a tip track that you settled on later. I don't. Well,
and again, DHL, the delivery of a third tape,
that's like $40 right there.
It's prohibitively expensive. So I'd like to critique a fictional family for a decision that they probably didn't consciously make.
Leaving their child at home?
No, that's fine. I would do that. I do that often. It's something that I critique real people on sidewalks, which is walking all in a line.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a wide berth they're casting through the airport terminal. You're absolutely right.
Having walked through the sunset in San Francisco behind people going maybe half a mile an hour, and it's 3 people wide, I thought that required some audacity. But this, what I've just been told, is 5 boys, 6 girls, 4 adults, all in a line, just pushing through the airport as if they're a snowplow.
When you see even one person, but or a group of people at the airport, and they are knees up, hauling through the terminal. Don't you kind of give them a little leeway? Don't you kind of give them the little grace of like, okay, they're trying to catch a flight. Let me move out of the way.
It is yin and yang, truly, because I physically move to give them space, but in my mind, I'm tripping them.
They aren't late through some failing of their own.
No. This is not a reasonable or rational compulsion. This is just something that I find... It's like when you're driving across a bridge and you're like, what if I just drove into the water? It's that kind of thing.
Jerod, I don't have that compulsion. You need to talk to somebody.
I think more people have that than you think.
You think people are driving over bridges and thinking about Beetlejuicing themselves?
Even when people lean over buildings, right? Like when you are on the roof of a building and you look over, you're like, what if I jumped? It's not even like I want to end my life. It's just a what if?
Maybe I'm the weird one here, but I don't feel that way. I don't have those thoughts. I read once that like a certain percentage of people, a pretty high percentage, like have fantasized about murdering someone. I'm not in that category.
See, I'm actually with you on this one. I don't have that.
Look at us. Look at how pure we are.
Or does that mean we're that much more likely to be murderers?
That we don't even think about it? I don't think so.
That means that we haven't built up the ability to put those emotions at bay, though. So when they do arise, we won't know how to tackle them.
I don't think it's like a pressure valve. I think if you ask most murderers, hey, do you think about killing people a lot? They'd be like, oh yeah. It's like what I think about often. That's why I did it. I thought about it and then I did it.
He walks up and down the sidewalk.
This is maybe the only moment in the movie where I am impressed or happy about what I see Uncle Frank doing.
Holding Fuller?
Yeah, he's carrying Fuller. Like he's like rushing through the airport, like carrying his son. It's the only redeeming action he has in the whole film. He looks like a good dad. He's like keeping up. He's got the kid. Like he's not leaving his kid behind.
Looks like is doing a lot of heavy lifting here because he's not doing that out of anything other than just pragmatism.
Because of his worry about missing the flight. Like he's not going to be like, oh yeah, Fuller, you try to keep up.
Yeah, let's rely on these 10-inch legs to get us there.
I can see an exasperated Frank like jerking Fuller up like after he like tried to hang with the rest of the family.
In the airport, there are payphones.
That's true, a whole bank of them as they round that corner into the gate. This is such a simple gate, too. I'm assuming that this is what all O'Hare gates look like. But girls just got like a podium.
Right. There's no room for anything under it. Like, she doesn't even have a line to public address under. It's very debate team.
She's got a brown envelope that she puts the tickets in, I guess. Just licks it closed and then they move on to the next flight. Like these times were wild. The whole airport system of this movie is really a stamp of the early 90s, pre 9/11 airport travel. Do you think these days if you are traveling with a child and you don't check in that child that they would like say something to you about it?
I actually don't think so, because the checks that they have in place and the safeguards that have continued to build and grow over time are around the child, if you know what I mean. So
like the child there triggers all sorts of stuff, but the child not there doesn't really flag anything.
Right. I think it might on some larger database. So in real time, I think one of the alphabet agencies might be looking at that in a suspicious way. But As far as airline staff, I don't think so. I think once the child checks in, yeah, there's a whole lot more going on right now. But
Yeah, that makes some sense.
I still think this part of it, very narrow part of it, albeit, but this part of it, I think still holds up.
Yeah, like just as like the logistics of it all, like it's still a believable moment. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Like you go to the airport, short one child,
Mm-hmm.
you check in, you go to the gate, having gone through security, even what level we have now, they're not checking how many people are in your party. Now, if you all bought tickets together and you're checking in and getting boarding passes that way, you're likely to have noticed that an extra one printed out that you didn't hand to someone. But in the chaos of what it seems like they're doing right now, they'd probably do the same thing that they do later with a bag. They're like, hand this boarding pass to Kevin. Hand this boarding pass to Kevin.
I'm sure we have some airline industry listeners, so please write us at thehomealoneminute@gmail.com.
Oh, is that like an email address? Or
Oh, yeah, that's electronic mail.
And what if we're not awake to get it?
Jerod, that's kind of the beauty of electronic mail is that it's open 24/7 all the time. You can get it even on the holidays. It'll just roll right in almost instantly.
Even if it's going to be a couple of days before the phone lines are back up?
Yeah. That's what email is great for. Instant communication. You listen to a couple of bozos here talking about, what your airline computers would catch or not catch, and you get to chime in and say, hey, guys, listen up. You're right or you're wrong. By the way, love the show. Thank you so much. So much integrity.
So much integrity.
Speaking of integrity, I think this is the only person of color in the movie.
With a line, you mean?
I think at all. I think we've had these discussions before. You seem to be able to spot. Maybe there's some an extra here or there, like in the ice skating. But I think this is our only person of color.
I'm just trying to figure out how that as a segment would be received per minute.
What do you mean?
Just a binary for every episode of, is there a person of color in this minute or not?
Yeah, our Home Alone Diversity Watch, where we closely scan all the standard definition faces of O'Hare Airport, the Winnetka, Illinois ice skating rink, the hardware store, everything we got.
The grocery store?
Yeah.
Where we can safely say for the next 32 weeks, we will be like, nope, not this one. But in all fairness, a pretty large chunk of the film is just three characters in isolation.
Yes. And set in one of the whitest neighborhoods I've ever been in, even today.
It hasn't shed that in time. I'd say it's, if anything, just gotten waspier, right?
Yeah, maybe. They've put up even more walls and barriers to home ownership for certain people there.
Well, every 6 years when that house goes up for sale and someone texts me about it, it seems to be increasing exponentially in price.
Yeah. It was 4 point something million last time I saw it.
Whew.
Just get the Lego set, man.
Well, at the rate that Legos are going, that won't be far behind.
Well, yeah, that's only it's 2.1 million, but at least it's cheaper. I do think it would be fun if you and I got that Lego set, opened it up, and just recorded an episode of us putting together that Lego house together, like an
Done.
ASMR, like just Steve Albini, get the microphone real close to the Legos, get the snaps like right on our 1-inch analog tape.
But we can't put ribbons directly over the Lego. We have to put it at a 45-degree angle. If anyone has ever followed any of the Steve Albini advice around, especially snare drums, you'll know that is to be avoided at all costs.
What a king. Those are my bookends. We've got Utility Man on one end and the only person of color on the other end, both delivering lines that keep us from getting to Kevin sooner.
You just made it. I think she gets that out before the end of the minute.
Yeah. But her next line.
So there you go. That's the surprise ending here. This is not our last episode.
No. Jerod, we're going to do an episode for every minute of Home Alone.
Not just our favorite 17. I did think it was a little suspicious that our top 17 was just the first
what
17.
What a scam that would be. Like, oh, no, we never intended. What? The whole movie? No. The first 17. It's been the plan the whole time. That's some corporate messaging right there. That like, no. By forever stamps, we mean maybe forever.
Forever-ish. Yeah, the thin line between corporate nonsense and performance art.
Oh. You think sometimes a big corporation's like pulling a fast one on us and they go, no, it was art.
No, I just think it's two very, very different intentions that sometimes end up making what would be the same decision. Like that same choice made by someone who's just a grad student is like, I'm doing this to be weird.
I'm capping your data to be creative.
The choice to do just the first 17 minutes, that's pretty art school, right?
I suppose so. See, I kind of think that we're just getting better and better. Poor audio of last week set aside for a moment. I think we're getting better at this.
And that probably means we're getting even better than you think, because when looking backward, you typically forget the hardship before the win. So the whole rose-colored glasses, you tend to be more nostalgic. So if you control for that bias, we're killing it right now.
Before we even started doing this, I was more idealistic about this podcast when it was still in utero. But these days, I kind of like what we have. I think we've fallen into a comfortable groove. I was just we just had a little gathering of friends at our house a couple days ago, and I overheard some people saying, like, "Oh, have you listened to the podcast?" And a handful of them said, "Yeah, the first episode." And Jerod, that by design, that first episode is us just reading off all the credits and listing everything. I don't think it's the best representation of our fine work here.
Just to add a slightly different perspective, I would say if you don't love me at my credits,
you don't deserve me at my... Is this the only black person in this movie?